Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Before we get into the quarterback news and 7 names that still haven't found homes that were pretty, household names when it comes to the Denver Broncos, and Andrew Mason joins us, we have to talk about the Colorado Avalanche last night, because at a time when the Mile High City really, really needed some extra love and some hope, the Avs delivered. So we go between the pipes because, yes, the Avs, in fact, did get the 4-3 overtime win last night in Dallas for game 1 of their series. And while I do say this, it was electric. First of all, they're down 3-0. I'm thinking, all right, here it is. The Avs are going to lose. They just don't have the steam. Dallas should be tired, yet they don't look tired at all, which is a whole other conversation to be had. And so I'm looking at this series and I'm thinking Dallas should be tired. They're not, which is a little frustrating. We should be seeing more out of the top line guys. We should be seeing some better defense because Georgie is getting peppered. And I do think that 2 of the 3 goals that started the game were not Georgie's fault. The defense did absolutely nothing, it felt like. The second goal, I felt like that was on Georgie, but it is what it is. I still wish I could show you guys highlights half of the time, but unfortunately, we do not have the rights to those highlights. But oh, man, I was like, okay, here we go. The Avs are going to blow it. It is what it is. And then the power plays start happening. It's the exact same thing that the Jets did. You do stupid things, and all of a sudden you're watching the Avs be able to dominate. You have one of the best power play lines ever when it comes to this Avalanche team. Even when they went on 4-on-4, you had Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Val Nichushkin, I believe, was out there, and then Devontae's. Are you freaking kidding me with that lineup right there? Like, all household names, all hockey names that people are absolutely loving right now. You have Nathan McKinnon, who's in the Hart conversation recently, has been just a joy to watch. And you slowly start watching him come in. Val gets things started. A goal in every single game in the playoffs so far this season. They are a Stanley Cup contender when he is out there, and they are a 500 level team when they are not. So Val Nichushkin is the difference maker when it comes to the Avalanche team. Then you see Cale Makar get in there, and he's got an absolute snipe for a goal that he does. Nathan McKinnon gets involved, and then we go to OT, and I'm thinking, all right, here we go, Georgie. This is where we really need you to step up. And you know what? That's exactly what he does. Okay, he had some incredible saves. He's laying out his body. He's stretching in ways that no person should be able to stretch, especially when you have all that padding on. And he absolutely laid it out. He was on top of his game. And then Miles Wood with an unbelievable goal. I have never seen anything like this because at the speed he was going, which was insane. The intensity of the game already, that's why playoff hockey is the best. It can happen at any moment. You watch him go down the ice. He is switching the puck back and forth between like the sides of his stick, essentially, and he's able to do almost a backhand like pass to get it into the net. It was an insane goal. It was a beauty. Go watch the highlights after coffee break is done. But you got to give him credit because he has been an absolute stud. And you know what? This is good news if you are a Colorado Avalanche fan, because 68% of the time, the number 1 team ends up winning. So yeah, if they win game 1, especially when on the road, which is incredible that the Avs are doing that, they win the best of 7 series, 68% of them. And somebody who I haven't seen in a hot minute as we have Andrew Mason joining the show. Mace, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Rachel. How are you?
Good. It has been a minute. You've been traveling all over the place. I know it was a little crazy when it came to draft week. You were here in Denver. I was in Detroit, but we've been all over the place. And yet there's also some big quarterback news, kind of big quarterback news, I guess, that came out this morning with Ben DiNucci no longer on the team. We all knew that this was coming, though.
Yeah, farewell to the Nooch. Cult hero last year when he showed up for Broncos rookie minicamp and Sean Payton was talking him up to Greg Penner, and then right in front of Penner threw an interception. And then Payton's response is like, hey, Greg runs Walmart. Maybe he got a future as a greeter, but it was all in good fun. He was on a tryout then. That's the thing. So DiNucci was in a very fragile moment. So career-wise, but he ended up passing the tryout and ended up being the number 3 quarterback. We should put him on the practice squad. This is just kind of a numbers game thing in terms of how they're going to structure practice. And it's actually really interesting because the Broncos do have a tryout quarterback coming in from Colorado School of Mines for this weekend. But the thing is, realistically, as they get beyond rookie minicamp, you got to figure out this quarterback situation. Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, Bo Nix. Bo Nix needs reps. And so if he's your number 3 quarterback immediately, I don't think you can do the thing that you did last year in OTAs where the number 3 reps are split between 2 guys. They split them between Ben DiNucci and Jarrett Garantano. Garantano's now in the UFL.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really do that. And so let's say Bo Nix is number 2, Zach Wilson's number 3. You can't have Zach Wilson splitting reps with, someone else that you bring in. You want to find out if Zach Wilson's got something. I mean, not that he's the primary, developing as the primary goal here, but you want to see what he can do, whether he can learn this offense. And so realistically, I would be surprised, Rachel, if there's more than 3 quarterbacks going into OTAs when they begin here in a couple of weeks, because you do want to make sure that Stidham, Wilson, Nix get the reps they need. And if you had a 4th quarterback in there and you were basically splitting the 3rd team reps, that wouldn't be the case. So that's why this move was probably inevitable.
It's going to get messy though, Mace, because when there's going to be one quarterback who goes out there and fails, say, I don't expect it to happen, but let's just say week 1, Zach Wilson starts and he goes out there and he throws an interception, 2 interceptions, something bad, doesn't have a good game. They're immediately going to say, nope, we want Bo Nix. Yes. And I feel like the same thing can happen, even if it's Bo Nix starting. People are going to be like, we want to win now, see what Zach Wilson can do. Like, this is going to get dirty in a sense.
It could. Now, if it's Bo Nix, I'd like to think that
Broncos country will be patient.
Yes. And this is, I'm going to probably get on my
Mace,
high horse.
I lost you, my friend.
Oh, uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, I lost you.
Hang on.
All right. So we had a cable issue. We got that back and going. But Mace, like I said, I think it could be like a little dirty essentially. And I think people are going to turn backs on other quarterbacks. You don't really want a 50-50 split or even a 30-30 or 33-33 split, if I could, talk. But like you said, I think people will be a little bit more patient when it comes to Bo Nix, but at the exact same time, I know Broncos country is really hungry to go out there and hopefully make the postseason this year.
They are, but what's a season that you'd rather have if you're Broncos country? Would you rather go to the playoffs and not find out one way or another about Bo Nix? You go to the playoffs on Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson doing just enough? Or would you rather go, say, 6-11, but Bo Nix has a terrific season and you find out he's the guy? Like, that's frankly, I'd rather have 6-11 and finding out Bo Nix is the guy. That's the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers 2008 season. They went 6-10 after going 13-3 the previous year with Brett Favre. But everyone's feeling pretty good because they found their quarterback. So, and the Packers might have had a season like that last year, missing the playoffs, but things broke just right for them to get in. But they found out, even if they didn't make the playoffs, they found out Jordan Love's the guy. Yeah. So I think that's the most important thing about this year, learning whether Bo Nix can be a viable long-term quarterback. Now, how you get there is interesting. Cecil and I were talking about this on Orange and Blue today. I would like to see if Bo Nix isn't all the way there to be a week 1 starter. I'd like to see them give him a series each half. Why not?
Interesting.
It's all about developing Bo Nix, right? So if you don't think he's ready for the full game just yet, or you think you might do damage to him and hinder his development by putting out there for too much too soon, why not give him a series each half? Look, you sub out edge rushers, you sub out defensive linemen.
Yeah.
You rotate receivers, you rotate tight ends, you rotate some teams rotate running backs by possession. Why can't you do that at quarterback, at least in the short term, as you're focused on Bo Nix's development and doing the right thing for him? This is something I wish more teams would try it. It seems to be like the all or nothing thing. Why does it have to be that way?
Well, because that makes it easier for people, Mace. You're all in on one quarterback. You're all in on this. But let's be honest. You and I both probably know. Sean Payton knows who he wants to be all in on. Now, if that's actually the case, we don't know because we don't know what the play's going to look like. But we know Sean Payton knows exactly what he wants to play out.
Yes, he knows who he wants to be the guy ultimately, but
Mm-hmm.
the goal is making sure Bo Nix is ready to be a long-term quarterback.
Mm.
In other words, if he's not ready to start and play every snap in week 1, don't throw him out there. But I mean, you see it with rookies at other positions all the time. Like, okay, you draft an edge rusher, you
Mm-hmm.
draft a cornerback. Oh, they're not ready to start, but we're going to play them
Yeah.
week 1. I mean, I think back, let's go Shane Ray, for example, back in 2015. He wasn't ready to start, but they were playing him. They were giving him snaps right away. Why can't you do that with a quarterback?
True.
Yes, quarterback, it's the most important position, but there's this mentality that you have to be all or nothing with who your quarterback is. I don't think that's the case, especially when you're developing a quarterback. And the thing that hinders it, I'm actually going to say, okay, well, they're going to counter. Well, if he's not ready, like, what if he has 2 bad possessions?
Mm-hmm.
You roll that dice when you rotate your edges and you don't have your
True.
number 1 edge rushing team out there on a 3rd down because you've got your backups in there, right?
Yeah.
You do that at a lot of other positions. Cortland Sutton is your number 1 receiver. He doesn't play 100% of the snaps.
No, definitely
Okay.
does not.
Yeah. It's the same principle. While basically you're saying, okay, we're developing this guy, and if Bo Nix shows progress, then you add to it, right? You say, okay, the first 2 or 3 games, let's say he's played 6 possessions and you've scored 4 times. You got 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals on 6 possessions over 3 games. Then you can either say, okay, we're going to give Bo Nix a little more, or maybe you decide, okay, he's ready for the whole kit and caboodle. But I wouldn't mind saying, okay, he's passed this test. Let's give him let's do a 50-50 quarterback split. But don't do the Tom Landry / Dan Reeves way back alternating plays. It happened with the Broncos in 1992. You had Sean Moore and Tommy Max alternating plays. I'm not saying do that, but alternating possessions or maybe saying a quarter here and there. I'm not opposed to something unconventional if that allows for a sensible development for Bo Nix, which gets him reps, even if he's not ready to be the starter right away.
Here's my only thing with that. Bo Nix was in college for a long time. Bo Nix is supposed to be the quote unquote the most NFL ready because of how long he played college ball. So it's like, okay, how much time does he actually need to be able to go out there? And I know that there's a certain amount that you need to be able to go from college to the pros. Like it's a faster game. There's a lot more that goes into it. But I'm like, okay, like let's figure it out, because if not, then you might be looking again to the 2025 NFL draft to say, we got to find another quarterback. And if you only give him a certain amount, then can you really learn that? Like you got to just give him the pressure and go with it.
It's a fair question. And I think the answer to that is sort of how you view this. If you say, okay, we're going to get him a possession a game and then a possession and a half and then a couple possessions and a half. Maybe what you're thinking about is by mid-season, he's getting it all.
Yeah.
Like you're basically saying, okay, the inevitability is he's going to be the starter. And maybe in the back of your mind, maybe you have a goal. Maybe in the back of your mind, a goal was, okay, he's getting all the reps by week 6 or week 7. And then you've got, depending on the bye week, you've got 10, 11, 12 games there, plus the early season sample size to get a good measure on where he stands going into next year. Because if you believe the prognostications for the 2025 season, you'd think the Broncos are going to have potentially a top 5 pick, because most prognostications are not high on where the Broncos stand. I think the internal expectations at Sanctuary Health Training Center, however, are different. I think the internal expectations are of this team at least like last year, being in the playoff conversation to the end of the season.
Okay, so let's just play the game then. It is week 10. You just finished week 10 and you're 6-4, but you've been splitting the quarterback like reps. What are you doing? are you going to just be like, okay, let's give it to Bo Nix and see what he can do? And then all of a sudden they lose and people are pissed because you were somewhat in the quarterback conversation or the playoff conversation. And now you're no longer in it. Or do you keep rolling with what's working?
If Bo Nix is the lesser of the two quarterbacks, you roll with what's working. But you're also evaluating what they're doing. If Bo Nix is the greater of the quarterbacks you're throwing out there, by then you'd have a decent sample size on him. In that situation, you could say, okay, if we are more efficient on a per possession basis with Bo Nix at quarterback, then you go full on with Bo Nix and you take your chances. Because at that point, you can lean on the performance. You can lean on the sample size and say, okay, he's the better quarterback. If he's not, but you're 6-4, I think you keep doing what you're doing.
I just think it can get messy so fast. And I think Broncos country, despite the rookie QB, they're hungry for the playoffs. So I just feel like it can get really messy, Mace. But
yeah, it can, Rachel. But I think
you're looking long-term, Mace. I know you are.
Okay.
But Broncos country is looking at the very close future, saying Sean Payton is here. He better produce.
I get that, but at the same time, I mean, like, for example, with the Nuggets, like there's some flack toward what Calvin Booth said, right? About, okay, let's, we're interested in winning 3-6 and 4-8. And even though you can see based on the use of players, there's actually some mixed signals being sent in that philosophy, right? Which is why the bench is not as robust as you'd like. But I like the idea in theory of what he's saying. He's not wrong about the need to develop players and have things focused on the long term.
Yeah.
And I think with Sean Payton, he actually has the hand to do this. Look, you've missed the playoffs 7 years in a row, and I get the impatience, but the best way out of this is going to be Bo Nix developing into a good starting quarterback. And so you have to do the things that give him the best chance of that.
Yeah.
And you know what? The easiest thing is Bo Nix is the best quarterback on this team in the preseason and training camp. He's a starter in week one. And we'll know, like, we'll be standing up there. It may be on the hillside. It may not, depending on.
Oh no, Mace! I know you were gonna have an excellent rant, and I lost you again. Okay. Give him a quick sec. Technology never knows to work, but I knew this was going to be an epic rant, so we had to get the mic working for it. Mace, hit me with it. Let me hear.
Okay, so we're gonna be standing up there on the hillside and the bleachers, whatever, when training camp gets going.
It's gonna be 85 degrees, beautiful.
Yes.
Hopefully
we're gonna know.
Missed.
Yes, we're going to know if Bo Nix is the best quarterback. It's going to be obvious. This isn't going to be like the Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock shades of gray quarterback competition of 2021, where one did one thing better, one did another thing better. I think we're going to have a pretty clear grasp on whether Bo Nix is ready or not to be the number one quarterback going into the season. And if he is, don't wait. Like, if he's ready, do it. If it's CJ Stroud, it's where it's clear to everybody, don't mess around.
Yeah.
And if he
that's
does
best
show,
case scenario.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we all want. I'm a realist and looking at how the most likely scenario could well be a quarterback who shows promise, but is still learning the scheme and isn't all the way there. This is most likely with Jarrett Stidham being the starter early in the season. Zach Wilson is going to be really interesting. And I can say this about Zach Wilson. I would bet that most days that we watch practice, Zach Wilson has the single best throw of the day.
Yeah.
The one play that makes us go, wow.
Which will get Broncos fans excited. And they'll be like, that should be the guy. I 100% agree with you on that.
But the variance is going to be all over the place if we see what we've seen from Zach Wilson to this point in his pro career. I mean, that's the thing. You can put together a highlight film of Zach Wilson's splash plays last year from the Jets and be like, ooh, this kid's got something.
Yeah.
But then you watch him drift into sacks, move around. I say this, if you thought Russell Wilson caused sacks, just wait till you see Zach Wilson. And that's why I think while he's an interesting quarterback to bring in, I don't see this as something really viable unless he becomes a completely different kind of quarterback.
Yeah. Well, Mace, the show always goes way too fast, but I wanted to touch on just a few names that still haven't found homes that were some household names here in Broncos country. And of course, one of them, and he sat courtside at the Nuggets game the other night, was Justin Simmons. Still has not found a home. How surprised are you by that?
I'm surprised. I'm pretty surprised. I thought he would find a place within a couple of weeks, but
Same.
Once that time passes, it actually behooves the player to wait until preseason. Wait until a team looks at their safety situation and says, we don't like what we've got. We need to bring somebody in. You can find yourself maybe landing with a contender because either an injury happens or a young player doesn't step up and a team thinks we're in our Super Bowl window. We need to get a better player at this position.
True.
Broncos fans remember this 9 years ago with Evan Mathis, a guard who sat on the free agent market after a terrific season, and the Broncos bring him in the middle of training camp. He's your starting guard for a team that goes all the way and wins Super Bowl 50.
Yeah.
So when you're a player of Simmons' ilk and you're still out there, that's a part of the reason why you're looking for the best situation. And again, once you get past those first couple waves of free agency, you can sometimes be better off waiting, because right now you're seeing below market contracts. You saw Tyler Boyd go to Tennessee at wide receiver this week. He's a really good player, and
get paid like it.
Yeah, I think he's going to be huge value for the Titans.
Yeah,
Boyd might have gotten more if he'd waited until August. Of course, that being said, he's a wide receiver. There's not a shortage of wide receivers out there. There's a distinct shortage of safeties that have the range that Justin Simmons possesses.
Agreed.
He's got a little bit more hand here, so I think he can sit and bide his time and wait.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. And of course, it's always funny because you're like, well, he's been without a job for so long. It's not like these players are, hurting for money in a sense of if you don't have a job for a few months. But it will be interesting to see where he lands. Next up was a household fan favorite, I would say, and that's Dalton Risner. And obviously we saw him go to the Vikings, but no home as of right now.
Yeah, I thought the Vikings would actually bring him back because he played pretty well for them when he came in last year. So I'm surprised that they didn't come to an agreement on a value-friendly re-signing earlier in the offseason. So what's interesting, you hear his name floating around. I mean, you see he might go back to Minnesota. There's some talk that maybe Miami interested in him. Of course, Miami running with Mike McDaniel, running the Shanahan-McVay offense. And that's what he was drafted for back in 2019 when Rich Gangrello came over as the offensive coordinator after working under Kyle Shanahan. And of course, last year in Minnesota, he plugged right into Kevin O'Connell's iteration of that offense, and he did pretty well. So I think there are a bunch of teams for which Dalton Risner is a good scheme fit. And I think at the end of the day, he's still going to land with one of them.
Well, and I follow his wife over on social media, and I know they just moved down to Florida. So that connection is very interesting of, hey, maybe Miami is a good fit for him. And maybe there is some telltale signs with them moving down there. So they sold their house here and they moved down to Florida. So you never know what can happen.
I'm a little shocked that Risner would leave Colorado as his full-time home. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I was a little surprised as well. But I also think that there was a bad taste left in the mouth after he left the Broncos. So
yeah, maybe. And that's a lot of people go to Florida for fresh starts. There's a long history of that.
That they do for sure. Maze, I know you might be possibly doing an article on some of the other names. The last one I want to touch on is Mike Purcell. Maybe not necessarily a household name, but if you paid close attention to the Broncos, then you obviously paid attention to him.
Yeah, and it was interesting. After the Broncos revealed their new uniforms a couple of weeks back, Mike Purcell had a comment about wanting to be back in them. But I think it's sort of a numbers game right now on the defensive line. When they traded for John Franklin Myers from the Jets, you start adding it up. You have Franklin Myers. They brought in They brought in Malcolm Roach as a free agent. They have, Zach Allen coming back. They elected to bring back DJ Jones. You have another guy they brought in. You've got Matt Henningsen. A name also not sleep on is Enia Wazirike. The Broncos are hoping that they're going to get him back from the gambling ban.
No more gambling, please, and thank you.
Yes, he's eligible to apply for reinstatement this summer. He actually there were charges against him in a gambling ring in Iowa. Of course, he went to Iowa State University. Those charges have been dropped by the Polk County authorities in Iowa. So you've got a bunch of guys in the mix here. I just don't see room at the end for Mike Purcell at this point, unless you have a couple of guys who get hurt.
Yep.
And you bring him in, and he knows what's going on. But if you do bring him in, unless there's injuries, I don't think he's playing all that much. He's certainly not playing as much as he was last year. Malcolm Roach, you're asking him to do a lot of the things that Mike Purcell did.
Yep.
John Franklin Myers, I think you're going to line him up at end. I think with DJ Jones. And I thought that may be the key thing. DJ Jones was a potential cap casualty back in the spring, earlier this spring, I should say. The Broncos brought him back.
Yeah.
So you keep DJ Jones, you add Roach, you add Franklin Myers in particular. It just doesn't look like there's room for Purcell to come back. Doesn't mean he won't land somewhere else, because teams are all, teams have D linemen get hurt. They're looking for rotational guys. I guess would be surprised if it's Denver at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew Mason, always a pleasure. I'm happy to have you on here on this Wednesday.
Happy to be here. Sorry about the little cable issues. I'm going to have to get that fixed before Denver Sports tonight, coming up at 6 p.m. This evening with Will Peterson night, chopping things up.
Always so fun. And then make sure you tune in Cecil and Mace for Orange and Blue today at 4 p.m. Mountain Time as well. Mace, a pleasure. Thank you so much. And to everybody hanging out with us as well, thank you. Nice quarterback talk. Of course, we had a little bit of Avs talk to start things off, and then seeing where some former names could possibly land. It's an interesting conversation. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. Bye.